If you own a business and expect to one day sell your business, you need to understand what it's worth now, what you could do to maximize the value, and how best to position it for an M&A transaction in the future. Economics Partners is Utah's premier business valuation and strategic consulting firm. Go to econpartners.com for a free consultation. econpartners.com.
At Jersey Mike's, we take great satisfaction in getting that perfect meat slice. Yes. But we don't do it for fun. We do it for fresh. Because slice to order makes a sub above.
Thanks, Kalani.
Oh, yeah, baby.
You know, Mitch
Harper.
Welcome on in, Cougar Tracks podcast powered by KSLSports.com. I'm your BYU insider, Mitch Harper. Happy to have you on board to the podcast once again. And man, what a weekend, what a week it has been for Cougar Nation. You deserve this, Cougar Nation. You've waited so long for a win over Utah. You've waited so long to get into a Power 5 conference. Now it's all here. BYU sports is maybe in the best situation it's ever been. We're going to break down the Utah game, talk a little bit of Big 12, and a whole lot more here on the Cougar Tracks podcast, kind of closing the book on the Utah game because that was a memorable win for the BYU football team. Cougars win 26-17. You can follow me on Twitter at Mitch_Harper. Follow KSL Sports at KSL Sports on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And make sure to subscribe to this podcast on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating and a review. And also download the KSL Sports app today, presented by University Federal Credit Union. So again, the Cougars get it done, 26-17. How about that, just first off? I mean, the fact that BYU ends a 12-year losing streak to Utah. I will say, at LaVell Edwards Stadium before the game, there was a palpable energy. You could see it with Kalani Sitake as he was going through the Cougar Walk. I think the fact that the fans were back, it was a sellout crowd for the first time since 2017. There was so much juice in LaVell Edwards Stadium that night. I thought the scoreboards, the screens looked fantastic. Some of the, the touches on the south end zone need to be taken care of course. But those screens were fantastic. There was so much good happening with the program. And I think that, honestly, the announcement of the Big 12 Conference invitation, I think took a little bit of pressure off BYU's shoulders going into that game. And I say that because, not just because it's retrospect and revisionist history, but I really do feel like it was a burden lifted because, as you all know, every time BYU played a game, and if they lost a game, it was an indictment on independence. Oh, you lost to Utah, the talent gap. You're falling further and further behind. Oh, you lost to Northern Illinois. You can't continue to operate. Go back to the Mountain West Conference. Every loss was an indictment on independence. Now, there hasn't been many losses lately, so there hasn't been that narrative much. But I still believe that bump from the Big 12 Conference, it was a tangible thing going into Saturday night. And I think that this team was so prepared, they were so dialed in focus-wise, that it just made for a special night. And going into the game, too, Utah was saying things like, Whittingham was even saying the letters BYU. And he said something to the effect of, sometimes streaks are meant to end or meant to be broken. And it was broken, and BYU comes up with a memorable win that I think Cougar fans will forever remember because of the chain of events that happened this past weekend, the Big 12 and ending the 12-year streak. Now, that's the thing, too, is that it was a 9-game skid, but it spanned 12 long years. Think about everything that's changed in society from 2009 to now. The evolution of social media, TV viewing habits, social media, the way we interact in society with Zoom calls. I mean, just so many different things have changed. The smart cars, the energy. I mean, just there's so much. It has evolved. I mean, I was a 21-year-old kid the last time BYU beat Utah. Now I'm 33 with 3 kids, a wife. I mean, and I got responsibilities now, and I'm working at KSL. it's unreal to think how much life has changed and how long Cougar Nation has been waiting for this moment. BYU was ready, though, and that was something that was fun to see. And what was great about this game for BYU against Utah was that they beat Utah at their own game, playing physical in the trenches, dominating at the line of scrimmage, efficient quarterback play, not beating themselves. That's what BYU did. And what's exciting, too, for BYU going forward is that they've got so much room to grow. I don't think this is a situation where BYU is just clicking on all cylinders. I think there's still another level or 2 or 3 with this team. I think they're just scratching the surface of their potential. And I think that's kind of exciting because you thought last year at times, the Navy game, that was a flawless performance. How can you outdo that? I think these wins so far through the first 2 weeks, you go, that is far from perfect. And you're 2-0, and now you're nationally ranked number 23 in the nation. Want to play some highlights from the game. Some moments that stood out to me from this matchup against the Utes. Again, the Cougars win 26-17. And turnovers was a big talking point. You heard my conversation with Chaz Ayu last week, which I hope all of you enjoyed. Every single week here on the podcast, Chaz is going to be joining me talking about, X's and O's, football, but life in general too, what it's like to be a BYU student athlete. But he talked about the turnovers. And he was the one that set the tone, getting a takeaway, but BYU couldn't capitalize. Then Lorenzo Fauatea forced a fumble, and Isaiah Heron scooped it up.
Handoff to the setback, fumble, and picked up by the Cougars! Isaiah Heron with the fumble recovery, and the Cougars are already +2 in the turnover margin.
And they took advantage of that, too. They got a field goal, only 3 points. You would have liked to have seen some touchdowns. And think about that for a second, too. The game ends up 26-17. Imagine if BYU capped off those 2 turnovers with touchdowns. And I'll admit, too, I thought, okay, I'm having flashbacks of 2016, right? BYU's got some early takeaways, but they can't punch it in. They can't capitalize. It's playing out like a typical BYU-Utah game, but BYU kept answering. And it's one of the testaments to Jaron Hall, and I think why he's such a great leader of this team already. He is a cool customer. His first touchdown pass to Neil Powell was a thing of beauty.
Snap to Jaron. Takes off to his left, throws to the pylon. Powell makes the catch, leads it past the goal line. Touchdown!
Yeah, that was his first of 3 touchdowns on the evening. We'll get to more on Jaron Hall momentarily, but the second one, a big grab at the end of the first half to Samson Nakua against his former team.
Hall goes shotgun. Takes off. Throws for the end zone. It is caught in the end zone! Left side of the end zone! The former Ute, Samson Nakua, for the score! And the Cougars go up 16-7 with 4 seconds on the clock.
They go into the halftime locker room, 16-7, as you heard. And I think BYU was feeling pretty good, but I think there was that element in the fan base and with the team too, like, hey, don't take your foot off the gas. We've seen this song and dance before, we being the team. 2018. They've been there, done that. You have got to finish it for a full 4 quarters because Kyle Whittingham and Utah are going to eventually make a run. But I thought what is notable, though, when you got to the halfway point was just that you didn't feel like BYU was completely outclassed by any means. And again, it wasn't frills. It wasn't these special plays. It wasn't jet sweeps like it was a staple with Jeff Grimes. No, this was just line it up. BYU's going to run, some pretty basic packages. They're going to run it down their throat. I thought that was fantastic. And, we've heard so much about BYU's offensive line, and BYU's O-line last year was phenomenal. But I think there was that element of how could they do against a Utah? How can they fare against Power 5 competition? This O-line is not necessarily viewed maybe as in high regard right now as last year's group, but I'll tell you what. Blake Freeland, James Empey, they answered the bell. Clark Barrington, Connor Pay, Joe Tukuafu, Harris LaChance. Harris LaChance had some administrative penalties, but that group kept Utah in check. And I'll say, too, Utah's D-line, I felt this way coming into the season, that they were not as good as what we've heard about, in the past with Utah. Like 2009, Utah's D-line was elite. It was one of the best D-lines in college football. They had NFL talent. And that's why they were knocking on the door of a college football playoff. It's taken a step back. Honestly, I kind of wonder what the national pollsters were thinking in regards to Utah ranking them in the preseason. I honestly think it was a deal where they said Kyle Whittingham, returning a lot of guys. You know what you're getting from a Kyle Whittingham coach team. Now they got Charlie Brewer, seasoned guy from Baylor, tons of experience. They're going to be good. I think it was almost like an assumption. I know college football preseason polls are trying to predict and assuming things. I get all of that. But if that was supposed to be the 21st best team in the country, I was completely underwhelmed. And it's not taking away from BYU's win at all. But Utah was a little bit overhyped coming into that game. I think that's safe to say because they were soundly defeated by BYU in the first half, and it continued into the second half as BYU kept the scoring going, but Utah could not capitalize.
Snap and hold. Kick on its way. And it is wide. No good. No points for Utah. The Cougars keep the 9-point lead. The field goal is wide. It is no good. And with 4:35 to go in quarter number 3, the offense gets the ball back with a 9-point lead. Cougars 16, Ute 7.
What made this game so much fun, I tried to tap into the minds of BYU fans here because I got to think, were you not thinking after they missed that Jaden Redding field goal, well, this feels a little different because Utah kickers against BYU are lights out. The story about Matt Gay back in 2017, BYU turned him away when he was coming from UVU, and then he was lights out against BYU. It just seems like Utah kickers have always been elite. And to see someone miss, and then BYU capitalizes with a guy that very few were expecting to play. There was rumblings in the week, and you saw in the pictures throughout the week that there was no cast or anything like that. That's Gunnar Romney. He gives it a go, and he makes his impact felt, not being 100%.
Looking, stopping, firing, end zone, touchdown! Touchdown, Gunnar Romney!
BYU goes up 23-7 at this moment. That's where you're starting to feel the momentum. BYU can sense the victory is in sight. And there was a tone in the stadium. Like it was tangible. You could sense that BYU could sense that the finish line was near, but Utah had an answer. They had a run. Credit to them. They bounced back, and Mekhi Bernard, how was this guy not their starting running back? I mean, are you kidding me? Tavion Thomas, he just fumbles the football. Like he cannot secure the rock. He had another fumble. He had 2 total against BYU. One was coughed up to D'Angelo or to Isaiah Herron. But Mekhi Bernard put Utah in a spot where they scored 10 unanswered, including this touchdown run.
Brewers under center with Bernard, 8 yards back. Stretch to Bernard. And nice run. First down and more. Runs through tackles again and again and all the way into the end zone. That's a 22-yard run that appeared to be stopped multiple times. On Bernard's way into the end zone, he has been unstoppable, and now we're about to see a one-score game.
When it shifted to a one-score game, again, try to tap into the minds of BYU fans. I'm thinking, yeah, Cougar fans are panicking now. Because it was 23-17, and you're like, it's going to be 2018 all over again. And Utah just looked like they were poised for another bounce back, another comeback. But again, Jaron Hall, the cool, calm customer that he is. This guy is playing great for BYU. He's not coughing up the football. I think he's got to, take a few more chances in Aaron Roderick's offense, but the reads that he's making, he's going through his first, second, and third reads. It's elite stuff. And he just seems so calm, so poised, and confident in this offense. Like, I think everyone nationally, not locally, nationally, they thought, they're going to take a massive step back without Zach Wilson. Jaron Hall is an elite talent. He is. I mean, I've said it on this podcast, back in 2018 when he arrived as a freshman, you could have made the argument that had he arrived at the same time as Zach Wilson, that maybe would have been a heated debate, Zach versus Jaron. But Zach got the spring ball ahead of Jaron. Jaron returns home from the mission. He had to wait his time, dealt with some injuries, this and that, and now he's good to go. And he was looking good. And when he popped off this touchdown run, you know which one it is. But I thought, okay, are we talking about a Heisman moment?
UCCU is delivering HELOCs with a 6-month introductory rate of only 0.99%, and they're doing it in record time.
The housing market in Utah is booming. The median price for a house in Utah rose more than 30% over the past year alone.
That means you may have even more equity in your home than you realize. A HELOC is the perfect way to put your home's equity to work for you.
Just fill out an easy application right from your phone or computer at uccu.com.
Low rates, no fees, faster than ever.
UCCU. Love where you bank.
It's the story of an American held in a dark Venezuelan prison.
They're saying that they want to kill me. They're saying that they want me as their guarantee.
I'm Becky Bruce. I spent the last year working on Hope in Darkness. Find it wherever you listen to podcasts.
The handoff. No, it's a keeper by Jaron. And busts it out to the far side. Jaron Hall, midfield and more. There he goes. 40, 30, 20, 10. He did it. He scores a touchdown on 3rd and 1. A 66-yard touchdown run and no flags.
Okay, let me just say, Heisman moment might be a little bit much, but you did see some of the national writers saying as much about Jaron Hall. That, of course, that touchdown was negated. He was stepping out of bounds, but at first glance, I'll say it looked like he stayed in bounds, and that thing went to the house, and you just saw the elite speed from Jaron Hall. It was critical for BYU to have success on the ground from their running backs, but also Jaron, too. They had to keep Utah on their toes, and I think it's one of the reasons that BYU won this ball game was because they had two guys knocking on the door of 100 yards. Prior to 2021, the last time BYU had a running back that hit the century mark was 2009. They didn't get quite there in 2021, but 97 yards for Algier, 92 for Jaron Hall. That's pretty good production that BYU just rarely gets against Utah, because more times than not, BYU is a one-dimensional team against the Utes. They just are. And that's a testament, again, to Kyle Whittingham, the program he's built, the system that he has, for the dominance they've had in the trenches. But BYU was the one that dominated. And I'll say, too, Tyler Algier, 27 carries, 97 yards this next run. It gave me flashbacks of Harvey Unga.
Handoff Algier. Oh, gets to the second level. What a run! There he goes! 15-10. It's a big first down. A 15-yard run on 2nd and 10. That's not an easy run. He was stacked up. He was bottled up. He was wrapped up, and he got out, and he moves the chains with 5:42 to go.
And that first down run, which he nearly popped off for a touchdown. And it was, keep in mind, this Jaron Hall's touchdown getting negated was maybe a blessing in disguise, because it allowed BYU to eat up 4 more minutes of clock, kind of simmer down Utah's momentum quite a bit, and it set up a Jake Oldroyd field goal.
The snap, the hold, kick on its way, and it is through for 3, and the Cougars take a 2-score lead with 3:17 to go.
Once they got that, I thought, it's over. It's a wrap. BYU's got this in the bag. 2-possession game. Utah's not coming back from this, but there was still that just element of don't sleep on Utah, because at the same time you're thinking, okay, is this now a new path for Utah to break BYU's hearts? But I will say, too, that throughout the game, there was a lot of Ute fans in the crowd. Great atmosphere at LES. I mean, phenomenal. One of the best atmospheres I've witnessed in person at a BYU game. But they weren't loud. They weren't the typical dun 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 dun. Like, you weren't hearing much of that. And their band was kind of getting watered down by any PA music from BYU. Like, that was well orchestrated by BYU. But they weren't having that typical audible impact that they tend to have in Provo, or especially, of course, in Salt Lake. But on the road, they even kind of have a little bit of noise that can sometimes rattle BYU in these games. That wasn't there this go around. But then that final drive, BYU up 26-17. Utah's got the ball. 4th down. The previous play, Money Parks just completely drops it. So it sets up a do or die for Utah, and, well, the Cougars clinch the victory.
Charlie Brewer shotgun. Micah Bernard left hip. Tight twins left and right. takes a helmet-high snap, pumps, fires, goes, incomplete! Incomplete, far sideline! Intended for Britton Covey, too high, too hard, and the Utes turn it over on downs.
And the Cougars win it! We might have to redo the Cougar Sports Saturday theme, because the last Cougar Sports Saturday intro includes Greg Wrubell clip from the BYU-Utah game, I want to say in 2006, 2009. I think it's the Johnny Harleen 06 one. That's got to be updated. Maybe we'll pull this. Maybe one of the touchdown grabs with Sampson. I don't know. But I think we might need to update that. It's been long enough. We don't have to romanticize the Harleens, the Max Halls anymore. Now there's some new legends for BYU in this rivalry. And the guy that joins the ranks of the 21st century quarterbacks to take down Utah, Jaren Hall. You think about this, too. The 21st century QBs to beat Utah, Brandon Doman, John Beck, Max Hall, Jaren Hall. The previous three all played in the NFL. So Jaren Hall, maybe he's got a future potentially in the NFL. I'll say this. The ceiling is endless for Jaren Hall. I still wonder about maybe him as an NFL guy. But I'll tell you what, if it continues to progress and continues to rise up boards and things like that, I mean, he shows off the dual threat playmaking ability that he showed on Saturday night. There's no reason to think he can't become an NFL QB. 18 of 30, 149 yards, 3 touchdowns, a QB rating of 134.7, and 0 INTs. BYU, through the first 2 weeks, 0 interceptions. BYU's darn near unbeatable when they don't have any interceptions or turnovers. 17-1 in the Kalani Sitake era when they do that. Charlie Brewer ended up 15 of 26, 147 yards, 1 TD, 1 INT. I'll say for Utah, I think that it might be the Cam Rising era. Charlie Brewer's opened the door for Rising to step in. If he struggles against San Diego State, who blew the doors off of Arizona, by the way, if Brewer struggles, would not be surprised in the slightest if Cam Rising steps in, because we heard reports up at the Hill that it was kind of 50-50. Either guy could have won the job. I think they went with Brewer because more experience. He's now got over 10,000 career passing yards. You just naturally thought, okay, this is going to be a great fit with Ludwig in this RPO scheme, some good wide receivers, but those receivers were non-existent for Utah. Utah's got some real questions, and the Pac-12 South, with UCLA surging, Arizona State's going to be a tough out. USC now fired Clay Helton, which is an addition by subtraction. It might be tough sledding for Utah in the Pac-12 South. This could be one of those years that is a lot more difficult than I think people were expecting. And for BYU, they're exceeding expectations already. And now they've got the chance with Arizona State coming up on Saturday night to position themselves where they are in the center of the national conversation. Because if you beat Arizona State, you're 3-0. You're going to beat USF. You're going to beat Utah State. I know Utah State, they've got to win over Washington State, but BYU will win that game. They'll be 5-0 going into Boise State. Huge game coming up on Saturday. We'll have more throughout the week with the Sun Devils coming up. But BYU against Utah, 368 total yards. Rushing, 219, 149 passing, like 219 rushing yards. BYU gets over 200 rushing yards, like the turnover stat. They're darn near almost unbeatable. And Tyler Algier has earned himself the opportunity to be a bell cow. Give that man 20, 25 carries. I think this is personally going to be his last year at BYU. I do. Because I feel like you don't want to continue to get more tread on the tires. You want to go to the NFL while your stock's pretty good. I think if he continues to put up production like he did against Utah and BYU gives him that volume, he could be a 3rd, 4th round NFL draft pick. He's good. He is a fantastic running back for BYU, and he's a perfect fit. Also, some other guys that stood out. Puka Nacua. I told you about him. I've been singing his praises for a long time. He and Samson Nacua brought BYU an edge. They just did. Like, they just kind of got this little attitude, a little bit of swagger, ripping off the helmets. They just got a moxie, a Mamba mentality. They love Conor McGregor, UFC-type guys. They bring an edge, and you'd love to see that. Neil Powell, solid night. I mean, it was tough for the receivers. Utah's secondary, pretty good. But BYU was physical. They were going at him. And I love, too, how Neil Powell, after the game, brought up Tyler Huntley's, "oh, they so poo-poo" comment. that sat with BYU. Usually, BYU is the one that's saying the comments and it fuels the fire for Utah. Roles were reversed this time, and BYU didn't make it publicly known, but you could tell from that tweet, if tweets could show emotion, like it sat with BYU players the last 2 years. That just kind of irked them to the point where that was in the back of their mind. Like, okay, you think we're poo-poo? We'll show you. And again, they didn't give Utah any fodder. They didn't give anything in the media that was bulletin board material at all. They just let it sit, let it marinate, let their actions speak louder than their words on the field. And that's what they did in the losing streak. And now, going forward in this rivalry, there's so many questions. Because I think this win, too, it's not just ending the streak and getting a win over Utah. Now you have a clean slate going into the Big 12 Conference when you do in 2023. BYU and Utah are not going to play until 2024, and who knows if that'll happen. We'll see what ends up happening. But there is now a clean slate for BYU. You know, for the last decade, Utah has been able to sell on the recruiting trail in-state, hey, we're P5. Or, you know, there's not many recruiting battles between BYU and Utah as much anymore. But now, BYU is going to have some more battles with Utah because naturally when you go to a P5 league, you got to step it up with recruiting. And if you want to win a conference title, you got to occasionally get some more 4-star kids. You just do. Point blank, straight up. You got to compete now at a national level because now you have a set standard. If you want to win a P5 league, that's the barometer. You got to get some 4-star kids. But there's now nothing that Utah can hold over BYU's head. There's nothing. Nothing. And I think that this is one of those program shifting wins that rewrites a narrative in the state and reshapes opinion. Now, Utah's got a head start on BYU with recruiting at a P5 level. But BYU, the element with BYU is that they've always had kids that just dream of going to BYU or they respect the heck out of BYU, but then they're like, well, you know, I want to play in the P5. I want to be at a Pac-12 school. I want to be at a Big 10, SEC, Big 12, whatever it may be. They want to play at the highest levels. Now that's there for BYU. And this is just one of those wins where it could be a passing the torch type moment where Kyle was once the best head coach in the state. Maybe it's now Kalani who's the best head coach and running the best program in the state. Time will tell. There's still a lot of work to be done. Utah could still win the Pac-12 and go to the Rose Bowl this year. Their season's not over. It's going to be tough, like I said. But BYU has a lot in front of them, and that's why that win was so big to have it happen when it did and to get that last victory before the independence era ends against Utah. I think that was huge because now you go into the Big 12 era with a clean slate. It's a blank canvas against Utah, and now it's all on equal footing. And there's a lot to like about BYU when stacking yourself up against Utah. You got the NIL, you got renovated facilities. There's a lot of excitement at BYU, and they might be in the best position they've ever been as an athletic department and as a football program in the history of this school. A lot of exciting times right now for BYU football. That's going to do it for this episode of the Cougar Tracks podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. Make sure to subscribe to the show on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Leave a rating and a review. And also download the KSL Sports app presented by University Federal Credit Union so you can see all my bylines on KSLSports.com and also this podcast. So catch you next time here on the Cougar Tracks podcast as we get ready for Arizona State Week. Number 19, Arizona State versus number 23, BYU, Saturday night in Provo. Coverage will be here all week on KSLSports.com. Take care.